What's up, guys? Rideshare Guy here, and today I'm going to do a quick video about what kind of smartphone you should be using. Now, let me preface this with I'm not a tech geek. I don't love phones, or I don't know about all the latest gadgets and things like that. But I do have a pretty good handle on technology, and I do own a smartphone. So I think that that makes me at least somewhat qualified to talk about it, and I'll let you guys be the judge of that. But so in the past, I've actually owned an iPhone, and then I switched a couple years ago to Android. So right now, I'm on an Android LG G3, which is a pretty new smartphone. It's one of the expensive ones that I picked up for 150 bucks after I renewed my 2-year contract. So right off the bat, I'm going to say the importance of a smartphone, I think, is really undervalued. A lot of people don't realize that really after your car, your smartphone is really your second most important tool as a driver. And I'm a big believer in investing in the things that you use, right? I work online, I'm a blogger, so I make sure that I have a really good computer and I have a really good setup and I have good Wi-Fi, because those are two or three of the top tools that are going to help me be successful, right? So I don't think it makes a lot of sense to invest in a lot of things that aren't essential to your business. But as a driver, a good phone and a decent car are probably the two most important things, if not the most important things. After that, you probably want to invest in yourself. But so that's just something to keep in mind. That's why I think it makes a lot of sense to make sure that you have a top of the line phone, because whether it's expensive or not, I mean, you need it for this line of work. This is your business now, and you want to make sure that you're using the top tools. So I can talk a little bit about that, and because I see a lot of drivers out there that are on old iPhones and iPhone 4s and trying to switch between navigation and apps and things like that. And man, I just feel bad for them, because I know that the phones that are out there today, I mean, if you buy any phone that's been made in the past 6 months, it's insanely powerful, and it can operate Google Maps, it can operate Google Music and Uber apps, Lyft, Sidecar. I don't have any problems. I mean, I'll still restart my phone at the beginning of every trip, or at the beginning of every day, because that's just a good tip. And then if I have downtime, I restart my phone, close all my apps just to clear the RAM and make sure that the phone's running as smoothly and efficiently as possible, which is definitely something you guys should be doing. But at the same time, it all goes back and all starts with your phone. Now, if you guys are using the Uber iPhone, that's okay, but it's going to charge you $10 a week. And I think it's very manageable to do all the apps on one phone. And you can even try it out, especially if you're just doing Uber and you're going back between navigation and the app. That's pretty simple. I mean, I sometimes manage Uber and Lyft and music and maps. And I mean, I have my phone mounted right there, so it's pretty easy to touch. I try not to do it while I'm driving, but when we're stopped or when I'm waiting for a passenger, it's pretty easy to navigate, for me at least. It does take some practice, but back to the matter at hand, I mean, which phone should you guys get? So the first thing I'll talk about a little bit is iPhone versus Android. So I've had an iPhone before, and like I said, I switched a few years ago. I think iPhones are great, though. I mean, I think the new iPhones, iPhone 6s, look really sleek. I think the Plus is a little bit big for me. I mean, I have a pretty big phone, but that one is pretty huge. And I just like, especially now with the new iPhones, the screen's a little bit bigger so you can actually see things. And the great thing about iPhones is that they work. They're always going to work seamlessly, flawlessly. You never really have to worry about this. You never really have to worry about that. But the downside is that there are some features, there are some customizations that just because of the way the Apple operating system works, you aren't always going to be able to do. If you don't like a certain feature, you're probably going to be stuck with it. If you don't like this, if you don't like that, you're probably going to be stuck with it. And because Apple makes it so easy and so simple, they really are trying to appeal to pretty much everyone, right? They want someone that's 5 years old to be able to use it just as easy as someone who's 55. Right? And that works great, and their phones work great. So that's something to consider. I prefer Android personally because there's a few more customization features, and there's a few more things that you can do. You can change options, you can change settings, and just the way that the Android operating system is created, it's more open source, and so you have lots of developers who are basically, coming up with their own things. Now, some of the downsides to the Android is because of that, all that open source and have lots of different people contributing. There are some problems. I mean, I know that one of the biggest problems I've had on my Android in the past is the battery life and apps that are just sucking the battery. And it's really hard to figure out at times where my battery is draining. And I mean, I figured it out. You have to download this app that saves battery and things like that. With iPhone, you would never have a problem like that. So that's just something to keep in mind in the whole iPhone versus Android debate. I'm not going to get into either one, because I think if you go with iPhone 6 or you go with a top Android phone, it's going to be more than capable of being a top phone for you as a driver. Now, the thing is, you really want to keep in mind that the newer the better, right? Because these phones are always evolving. And like I said, when you are starting to run a lot of different apps and Google Music or Spotify or all these different navigation and Uber and Lyft, right? It does take up a lot of RAM. And so basically, you want to make sure that you have one of these top phones. Now, I know that me personally, I have a lot of problems with the battery life. So this might be something that you guys have experienced too out as a driver. I actually sometimes I'm losing battery faster than I can charge it. So that's just something you want to keep in mind whenever you go out there. Make sure that you start with a good charge, and that you also are just aware, because you don't want to have to end your night early because you run out of batteries or something like that. So I like to just make sure that I keep a little portable battery pack just in case, because sometimes that charges a lot faster than if I plug it in through the the cigarette holder. So there's lots of little tips and tricks you guys can do. Now, as far as the actual phone that you're going to get, I mean, I'm pretty happy with any of the top iPhones, the newer iPhone 6s, or any of the current phones that are out there are pretty solid. I mean, the only problem you're going to run into is they're pretty expensive. Now, personally, I'm on a family plan that I'll probably never get off of. I have unlimited data that I've had for whatever, 5 or 10 years since I was a kid, and I got my first cell phone, and I'm never going to let go of that with AT&T if I don't have to. But if you guys aren't on an unlimited plan, or maybe you're not even on a 2-year contract, there are some phones out there that I know that are a lot more reasonable. I don't know if I could go out and invest $600-700 in an iPhone or an LG or a Samsung Galaxy, right? So those are kind of the top phones right now. Obviously iPhone, and then on Android, it's Samsung, the Samsung Galaxy S5 or S6, the ones that are coming out, and then LG is a pretty new brand. LG G3 is the phone that I'm on that is becoming pretty popular. Now, there are a couple options I know of. I think they're called the Nexus and the OnePlus One that are getting pretty popular, and they're very similar to the Android phones like the LG and the Samsung. But the cool thing about them is that they're a lot more reasonably priced. I think they're only a few $100, $200-300 compared to these LG, which I think the retail price of my phone is $600 or $700, which is just insane. I would never pay that for a little phone if I didn't have to. And I mean, I think the good thing about, I mean, I'm going to always need a cell phone. I don't even own a home line. So for me, renewing a 2-year contract is really no big deal. So that's kind of my whole spiel about phones. I mean, the most important thing to keep in mind is don't be afraid to invest in a phone. I mean, you can go out there and get a good deal on a phone. Don't be afraid to spend a few $100 because it's your second most important tool as a driver, maybe even your first important tool if it's battling with your car. So that's just something to keep in mind. I see a lot of drivers out there asking me questions about phones, and I'm not an expert, but I do know a thing or two about iPhone and Android, and kind of just from the business sense of what you want to invest in. So hopefully this video was helpful, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, like the video, or subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment below, email me, anything, get in contact with me, let me know what you thought of this video if you want to see anything going forward. All right, take care, guys.